go to console. And once you get inside the console, for those that are new, you have to create a new project, and that's found here. So you create a project. So I have some already created, but basically you walk through, you create your project. Once you create your project, you should see something similar to this, and it should pop up with a tutorial. Once the tutorial, you can cancel out of that, because basically what we're doing is we're just going to spin up instances at Google Cloud. However, I do want to get us to the point where we learn how to spin up instances from command line at Google Cloud. And so that way you can use your scripts and stuff to spin up instances, destroy them. And when I say instances, I mean just like what you see here is like create an instance. So that's what that is. So I want to get us to that level. All right. If you guys already have your Gmail account or your cloud account set up, you're going to create an instance. For this one, I'm just going to call it Wednesday class Linux. I think it has to be underscore. It may like the dashes. Yeah, it likes dashes, so dashes is okay. And yours has to be unique to what I do, so it can't be the same thing or it's going to error out. I'm on the East Coast, so I'm going to choose the East Coast. I'm going to choose the very smallest instance. I'm going to change this to CentOS 7. 10 gigs is fine. Select. As far as the firewall, we're not going to worry about that right now. And then we're going to create. So it's going to create this instance out there on Google Cloud for me. As you can see here, it's spinning to make the instance. What I like about it is I can just open up my terminal from here, and I don't have to do my SSH keys, but we should walk through that so you can do that. By default, the actual terminals, the actual VMs, and they exchange SSH keys. So you can actually log into the actual machines via their terminal that they have. So this is me, sudo su-root. I'm becoming admin on this machine. That's that way. And then here, this is my local box. And I'm just going to SSH to this box. Actually, I'm going to SSH to this IP address here. So show you this. So right now, I'm just going to get the IP address of my machine, but the IP address that I'm going to get on this machine on Google is an internal IP address. So you do IP space ADDR. And as you can see, I have ETA0 here, and then it tells me what my IP address is. Now you see it's 10.142. And the name of this instance is Wednesday class Linux. As you can see, the external one is 104.196.154.217. So for my local box, that's what I'm going to SSH to. 104.196.154.217. Please note that the reason why this works for me is because I've already set up SSH keys on my box, on my local Mac to this one. So I'm going to walk you through that here. So I'm on my box now. All right. So for you, for those that want to set up SSH keys, it goes like this. Let me do basic because I think looking at it the other way, the other color may be a little bit too much. So basically, what you have to do to set up your SSH keys on your box is SSH-key gen-t, and you want to use RSA. I'm not going to run through this because I already have my keys set up and I don't have to switch out my keys. However, you take the default here, enter all the way, do not set a password, and inside your home, here is actually id rsa.pub. I want to cat that particular information, and then I'm going to cut and paste that information into here. So I go back over here to metadata, and then I go over to SSH keys, and then I hit edit. I add my key here, and that key, once you add it, it's going to generate this username here. And that's how you set up your SSH keys on your local Mac or Linux box. They do have instructions for Windows, and I think it uses PuTTY. Yeah, so they use PuTTY, and they walk through, and this is what you have to do for PuTTY. I'll post this for you guys that are using Windows. The reason for the SSH keys is because somebody could sniff your actual interaction with your box and what's called man-in-the-middle attack. Basically, when you're doing an attempt, so I'm going to vim sshd underscore config. So in here, I can set up my instance or my VM to not allow passwords. And I can also set it up to allow only certain users that could log into my box. So with that being said, when you're talking about what's the purpose of the SSH keys, say I'm a hacker, I can just end up just hitting your box multiple times if I wanted to, just trying different usernames and different passwords to attack your machine. So with that being said, if you want to really eliminate that, you can eliminate that with your usage of number one, of changing your port, but people still can scan. So that's really not a good idea. It's a good idea, but people still can scan your box. And then the other one is you want to be able to stop people from attacking your box so many seconds at a time with an attack. And then the man-in-the-middle attack, say for instance, we're on a network and we're sharing actual location out in the cloud. I'm sharing this bare metal box with other people who are on this bare metal box. Now, who's to say that that person who's on the same machine, who has a VM that they spun up, doesn't end up sniffing the traffic on that box? So they can sniff the traffic on that box and then, notice that you're using a password to get in. And so they just sit there and just try using a dictionary attack. So that's why when they tell you to make your password strong, here's dictionary attack via SSH. So this is a good one to watch here, but this is also, the brute force attack is really somebody wrote a script and all they do is just sit there and just hack your box. They're just sitting there just hacking away at your box. So, when you get someone doing that, number one, it's eating up your bandwidth on your machine, and two, they could cause your machine to die. So you get the man-in-the-middle attack. You can get a DOS attack, somebody attacking your machine. So it's just the DOS attack. The SSH keys doesn't take care of the DOS attack. That's something totally different. However, the SSH keys does take care of somebody doing like a brute force, which you setting up authentication. That's just one way, right? Then there's two-factor authentication over SSH as well. DigitalOcean has it. A couple of places have it, but let's look at it. What do they consider two-form authentication? I know. Let's see. I'm gonna go back and look at DigitalOcean. Yeah, so SSH key pair, and then a server-side password. They actually go in here and tell you how to break that down. And notice that it just said there is a public key and then keyboard interaction. Read the commas as an and. So if this user matches, you have the public key and this password, then we'll let that user in. That's a two-form authentication. And you'll find that sometimes in your searches of using different apps and stuff, they do maybe a two-form authentication. I think right now PayPal does it, where you'll log in, and then once you log in, it'll say, I'm going to send a text to your phone. And it sends you a text and you have to put in the code in order to get in, even though you have the password and it's your account. That's a two-form factor authentication. So you can do the same thing with SSH. You can actually set up a password generator that'll send out a text to your phone or to the user's phone and say, okay, well, you have this key and you need this password or this access code to get in. And you can set it up, and you can set it up to change every 10 seconds or something like that for that person to log in. So inside here, we're telling it to use keys. You can see here, I'm telling it to use RSA keys. I could have set up DSA keys, but RSA is good enough for what we need to do. And as you can see, I can't log in as root, so I can't SSH root at or SSH-L at, and then it tells it to look at authorized keys in order to log in. And then look here as well, password authentication, no. I can't even type in a password. And then the challenge response, if you were using password, has been disabled, and this is all set up by default from Google. So this is just how how they outlined everything. So let's get rid of that. So that's SSH keys. That's me logging in from my terminal. When I say terminal, my local bare metal machine, my laptop, or whatever other box I have, going to Google's box. So when I say by default, they already have the authentication, the SSH key set up between the two boxes. Let's go back to my compute engine because I have two boxes that I already set up. And so here is the other one. Let me look and see which one did I log into first. This is what I was talking about. If those of you who were in my class on Saturday, this is what I was singing. ifconfig is the old command. The new command is ipadr. So that's just, and if you want ifconfig, it's a good learning lesson. You need to do a yum search ifconfig and let yum go out to the repo and search where every instance of ifconfig comes up. There's something called tools. Yeah. So net tools is where ifconfig is for if I want to run that command. So I do a yum install net dash tools dash y. It's going to run it. It's going to install it for me. Right. So now I can do ifconfig. Right. But before, let me do a yum remove to show you. And clear. Now if I do ifconfig, that's no longer there, but I can do ipadr. That's how I find out my local IP address. So I want to now, see that's 10.0.12. I want to go to this IP address. I want to SSH to 104.196.179.55. So I'm on my other box now. Actually, let's close that and let's open up another terminal. Let's make it a different color. So remember, when I want to sudo to root, I su-root. Let me see something. I can su- this way, but I'm coming in as Tamika Reed. So I probably need to put in the password that they have on it on my Google account. Yeah, it would be the password for my Google account. No, it doesn't like me. I had to figure out which one it uses. Either way it go, you can sudo su-root and you are now root. Let's talk about some basic commands, and we're going to talk about some advanced commands. So I know some of you guys are probably kind of new and some of you are a little advanced, but we're going to kind of go in between advanced, intermediate, and beginning. So bear with me. All right. So one thing you always want to do whenever you want to make changes again to a file, you always save the file before you make changes. If you are running a VM like we are, you want to save the changes of the VM. So in here, we can take, let me see, where is it at? Well, we can take a snapshot of this VM. Let me look in here and see. I don't want to clone it. I actually want to take a snapshot. Let's go to create a snapshot, and I want to create a snapshot of my will test one. I can leave it automatically encrypted. I can say it's class before changes, right? Whatever description suits you, and then create. So now it's creating a snapshot. So if I had to roll back, if I totally screwed up this box, which is nothing on it, but a good method would be to create a snapshot of the box first and then continue on. And those that did create your Google Cloud account, you have 60 days until you have to pay. So you can always go make another email address and then keep using it. however you feel. Or you can switch over to DigitalOcean, which is $5 a month, for instance. Or you can use VirtualBox on your local box and go from there. All right, so we have a snapshot. So anytime I want to know where I am at on my box, I could type pwd. I'm in root. I'm going to exit out here. And I'm going to do some of the same commands. So pwd, I'm in home. Tamika Reed here on the right. And on the black screen, I'm in /root. So let's look at this. And then let's look at this over here. All right. So I have two instances. So I'm talking to both screens at the same time. And I'll say if I'm on the black screen and I'll say if I'm on the white screen. Right now I'm looking at the black screen. I did a ls / The only thing I did was listed what was under /. Everything starts from / anyway. So if I tell you to cd over to /opt, meaning cd over to /opt. So you would do cd over to /opt. CD meaning change directory. That's what that means. So what I wanted to show you, if I want to go back up to root, I could do this. I could do cd /, or if I was in /opt, I could do cd ... Takes me one level up. If I were in cd over to var log and I do the same thing, cd ... it's going to take me up one level. If I wanted to get back to /, cd /. That's the purpose of cd, change directory. What I wanted to show you was on the left side, what I'm looking at is I see a listing of directories over here and links. How do I know they're directories? It's because there's a D in the front here. How do I know they're links? It's because they're L. And I also know permissions. For those that were in my class this weekend, this will probably be a review for you, but for everyone else, it may be new, but we're going to run through this. So remember this, everything is divided up into user, group, and other. So, and the way permissions are broken down into octals. So when I say everything is in octals, so RWX, what I just grabbed was bin. So this is the bin. It's actually /bin, be politically correct there. So what you have here is, as you see, I have user, group, and other. And what you see is RWX, RWX, RWX. And you're like, what in the world is RWX? All right. So basically, each one of these equals to 4. We're talking octal here, 2, and 1. So basically, you can look at this here and say this is 4, 2, 1. And you add this up, so that equals to 7. Same here. So that means the permissions on this directory is 777. Well, it's wide open. It means the user, the group, the other, everybody can do every single thing, right? So let's do one more. And it's a link. I should let you know that it's a link. So let's grab here. Let's do this one. And then I'll explain this other stuff that you see. So with this being said, you look at this. This one is a L. It's a link. So let's go here. L equals to link. D equals directory. And nothing in front. You got nothing in front. That's an actual file. And when I say nothing in front, let me ls etc. Let's do ls minus L. Sorry. And let's pipe that over to more. So pipe command over to more. All right, look here. You see that dash in front? That's how I know that's just a file. So that's why I put that here. It's just a file. So 3 types, your link, your directory, and a file. There's more like characters and block devices, but we're not ready for that yet. All right, so here, what do you see? SRV is a what? So with the D in front, it means it's what? It means it's a directory. And then the permissions, if we know we're adding them up for the user, let's break it down. Remember this, everything's is in 3s. So looking at this, we see read, write, execute is on. So we know this one gets a 7. We know that it's R and it's X. And so read is 4, X is 1, that gets a 5. And then read an X, again, 4 plus 1, it gets a 5. So by default, the permissions on this directory is 755. Does that make sense to everybody how I came up with that? So with that being said, we know the permissions on SRV is 755. We know that it's a directory. The next thing we know is that the user and the group is root. As you can see, I made a directory and it's called hello. And you can see the user and the group of that is me, right? So how does that get assigned? Let's look at one thing here. ID-A tells me I have a UID of 1,000 Tamika Reed. I have a GID of 1,001. I'm in a group named Tamika Reed. And here's the rest of the groups that I belong to. I'm in a Google sudoers file, and SE Linux is turned on. There's several ways to tell how SE Linux is turned on. When I do a ls-l, you see this dot right here? Then that's how I know that SE Linux is turned on. I can double verify that by saying git enforce, and I see that SE Linux is set to enforcing. All right. I can also do another thing here. I'm switching in between screens. I'm on the black screen. I can vi etc SE Linux config, and I'll see that SE Linux is set to enforcing. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm running at enforcing as we speak, but I know that SE Linux is turned on. Because I just checked with get enforce. But also there's enforcing, there's permissive, and disabled. And those are the three things that I can do to SE Linux. I can set it to permissive, I can set it to enforcing, or I can disable it. Anytime you set SE Linux to do one thing and you want it to be persistent across reboots, you need to change it here in this particular directory. And that directory, or that file is etc SE Linux config. So that's how you check to see what it's set at, right? Well, let's do this. Let's over here I could do sudo set enforce. I want to set it to permissive. I just do 0 because it's already in enforcing. And when you set enforce to 0, it's going to go back and say, okay, I'm going to change permissions. I'm going to change SE Linux to permissive. And that's only a temporary thing because over here, I have enforcing inside of the actual file. All right. So here, now if I do a git enforce, you'll see it's permissive. So I can change that back and say 1, and it go back to enforcing. This only applies when it's in enforcing mode. If it was already permissive and you set it to 0, it would be disabled. So that's just a FYI. When will you use SE Linux? Well, in Linux, you need to use it all the time. So by default, the reason why you use SE Linux is because it's another layer of security. Now, if you talk to some people who are developers and so forth and so on, they'll tell you it is a waste of their energy because they're like, it's too hard to figure out. It breaks everything, so forth and so on. So SE Linux, by default, in the standard installer Red Hat is set to be turned on. So what does SE Linux give you? It gives you another layer of security. So by default, everything you have on your box is being recorded to what we call your logging server, which is local to this box at this point. So if I cd over to, I could just cd over to var because I'm at /. How do I know I'm at /? Well, there's one thing. There's my root, there's the name of my box, and then this is my current path, or my current directory. Or if I didn't know that, I just type pwd. So now watch this change here on the black. Watch that change. You see now it changed to var. There's a reason why that changes, and we'll talk about that later. But I want to go to var log, actually. And I like to run this command. You guys could run this with me if you have everything up. You can do a ls -ltrh What did I just do? Man ls. And I type it over here, ls minus ltrh on var log. All right. So what I did was, when I don't know what the options are, you need to understand you have man pages. So it tells me ls lists the directory of contents. As you guys get more advanced, you start writing your own man pages, which is cool. So we'll talk about that. So I did a ls minus l thr. Okay. So let's look in here. I did a ls minus l thr. So H was human readable. And you see it says with the dash L prints in human readable format. So they kind of go together. And here's the dash L, give me the long listing, which what you see over here in the white. I gave it the long listing, which gave me all the other permissions that are associated with it. And then the R that you see here gives me the reverse order while sorting. So it's sorted for me. And then the T gave me the timestamp. So basically I sorted with time. So I wanted to know what was the last file written to, really, is what it gives me in that directory. So this is the last file that was written in that directory. If I do a date, I also get the time as well. So let's run that again. And then let's do date. So our current time is 23:48 on this particular box. And then here is my 23:45 that lets me know this is the latest file that has been written in this directory. These two are. So why do we care? All right, so we care because we need to know what's going on with our server. Our log files tell us exactly what's going on with our server. So if everybody wants to know how their boot went, you can do a cat. If you're in var log, you can cat boot log. So you can see here what went on in the file, or what went on when it booted up, or I can do a vim boot.log. You see how that came out? You see how I got the control characters? That's why I say cat it. Let's clear that. So bring it over some so it's not off the page. Cat boot.log. Pipe that over to less. Oh, it didn't like me. Just cat it. Yeah, it didn't like me with the less. It sends the control characters back. But what it gives is it tells you when it booted up, what services started okay and what services possibly failed. So that's what you get from your boot log in your messages file right here. Let's clear that. And that's cat messages, right? And it tells me I got some failed password attempts. It tells me some network manager. It tells me a lot about my box and what's going on. Let's play with this. Let's look at secure. I'm gonna do a tail. I want to show you this. Dash F on secure. Okay. All right. And I'm gonna open up another terminal. All right, the external IP for that is 104.196.179.55. Boy, I can't remember. 104.196.179.55. Did you see that? I don't know if you did. It was quick. Watch the screen. You see I logged out. It's logging. I go back, SSHN, and it's telling me my public key is accepted, so forth and so on. Here's my RSA key, blah, 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 blah. Okay? That's what you want when you're logging. That right there was the secure file. And what I did was I did a tail-f secure in real time, so I can get real-time statistics on what's going on with that particular file or my login. So now another thing that you get in real time is you could do a tail-f on messages. So here, whenever you log in, let me show you this. Control C, clear. Vim vim etc rsyslog.conf. This file tells you, it tells the system exactly where to store files or logging messages. So here, anything that's dealing with mail or anything that's dealing with cron or just information, it tells it to store in var log messages. I could change this and start a syslog server and tell it to go store something over in Thailand. As long as I have a connection between the two, I can tell where to store my files. Same thing with secure mail, and if it's emergency. This used to be your news and critical stuff. That used to be like your news feeds. That's what they were. And then here you can see varlog bootlog gets a local 7. We'll go over these as we get into what these actually mean a little later. But we're just doing basic stuff, just showing you around. So again, remember, if I want to know where I'm at, pwd. If I want to go to another directory, I cd to say /etc, and I go into that directory. If I want to see the contents of this directory, I do a ls-l, long listing. If I just want to just look at what's in that directory, I can just do a ls, and doesn't give me the permissions as it normally would. I can also do ls-l and pipe that over to head, and it's going to give me the first 10 lines. I can do ls-l and do tail, and it's going to give me the last 10 lines. I can do ls-tail-n 40, and it's going to give me the last 40 lines. I can do head -2, n -2. I just give them the first 2 lines. So that's head and tail. That's CD. That's LS. That's ls-l. That's ls-ltrh. You said, is this equivalent to Windows event logs? Probably so. Yeah. Keeping up with what's going on with the Windows side with event logs and so forth. But then it depends on the application of where that application installs is logging information. So that would be equivalent to that. So if you're on your box, type date, and it gives you the date, the time, and so forth. But if you did a date -- help, you can see you can break this down. So let's do a date -- help. Type that over to less. That's what you want to do. All right. So as you can see here at the top, remember, you have a date, which is the command, and then in brackets are options, meaning, in other words, I have optional things that I can do with my date. I can also do date -u, and let's look and see what that gives us. And then here's mandatory arguments too long for options, or mandatory or too short for options. Okay, so let's look at this. I can put it in different formats. I can do a week and a number. I can tell it how I wanted it to be displayed, and they break that down here. Like your time zones, the dates. Let's do clear. What does date -u give us? And then what does date give us by itself? So look, date -u, it gave us UTC time, and then date by itself gave us EDT time. You see the difference there? So let's do date -- help. Pipe that over to less again. So yeah, see -u is UTC. And then I can do minute, day, hour, minute, what is it? No, month, day, hour, minute. I can do it that way. I can do changes. Let's look this up. So we did the date, and we did a date -u. Now look at how they formatted it. They did a date dash. That's actually setting the date too. So they just set the date to be displayed, and then they left the time zone. And here they changed it and said how they wanted the date to be formed. They said the following example takes an input date and time string and displays the output in the date format. So yeah, so here's like I want my date, time, and time to be formatted this way. And you don't have to play with this right now, but that just gives you an idea of how you can format your date. You can customize it to how you want to, and that's what this talks about. Oh, let's see. It said display past date. So date dash dash date equal to 3 seconds ago. Oh, okay. 1 day ago. What I guess the date and the time at that time and so forth. So there's different things that you could do. Yep, date dash U, we did that. And then we can format our options. So date plus percentage A. Let's look at that. You don't like that? Let's see, do I need a space? Yeah. So the A is the abbreviated week. The capital A is the full weekday name. So let's go back up and do capital A. And let's go back and look at that. We can do, yeah, so we can do percent %D, which will give us all of it. But let's do this. Let's do plus D, percent D plus percent M. Okay. So I want to, they don't like the spaces. Yeah. So, so as you can see, let's get rid of that. Yeah. So that's just me playing around with the date command. So that gives you an idea of how you guys can play with the date command. Does that make sense to you? When would you ever use it? In a script? Um, when you don't want to when you don't want to pull in all of this information, you want to kind of fine tune your script to have this information. You could do that, which would be really really cool because then you can say, okay, well, I fine tune my time and my date stamp for my log files. So again, back over to var log, and let's do it ls minus l and then grep for messages. You see how they have messages, they got a time, they got a date on it. You can set up your script or your log files to be that same way. And that actually comes from etc log rotate d. Let's look at, it may be syslog. It may not be. Let me see. Yeah, it's syslog. So syslog, it takes care of the var log messages, but in here, let me look at, let me see. Oh, they don't have nothing in there. I was trying to show you where they actually set it at. I will have to do some package install where they set where this messages should be, this messages and then the date. There's a configuration file that actually sets that, and there's probably in log rotate, but I didn't see it there. And it's not in, I see syslog, but I don't see where they have the rotate of it. And it's not in NXT, but I'll look and find that. So you have that. So we've gone over the CD command, we've gone over ls, we've gone over ls minus l. To read a file, it's always vim or cat. Or let's look at the other ones. Yum, search, Pico. So Nano is another text editor. I'm gonna go over to etc. I'm not a Nano fan. I've been using Vim forever. So again, if you do a ls minus l, remember anything that doesn't have the dash in front is a file. If it has an L or D in front, it's a link or a directory, respectively. So let's look at the host file. So I can do nano host. So this looks totally different than what I've been using before, right? So in here, I could just start typing. I just start typing, right? And then I want to save this. So now when I want to save, I do so it's just Control X. Save modified answers. No will be, if you say no, will be destroyed. You want to hit yes. So I just saved it. So, and then I'm going to Control C and Control X. And then, yes. Oh, how do I get out? Is it Control X? Nope. Control C. I did a Control X. I want to quit. Control X. And nope. Okay, there you go. All right, so now if I cat host, oh, I didn't save it. That's awesome. I'm not a fan of Nano, so don't charge it to my head. I like VI. Actually, it's Vim. So because I don't have to remember all the Control X and Control Y. I like Vim. I've been using it forever, so I stick with Vim. Vim is usually everybody who logs in usually has access to the actual files in that directory. And when I say files in that directory, usually they're command line scripts. So if you did a ls on bin, you'll see that these are scripts. You don't ever want to mess with these because you could potentially mess up your machine. But as a regular user, if you do a ls on bin and say I do more, so I can do like bin more host. Oh, sorry, etc host. I just read that file, right? So, if I do, let me show you this. If I go over to sbin as root, you see the permissions change. User group other 755, and you see I have some files in here that I can run. So let's look at this. Can I see the older user sbin? Yes. Can I run some of these files? I probably can run some files. I probably have permissions on some files. Let's see. Let me see. Chroot is missing something. Okay, let's look at Chroot. I can execute it. Versus over here, because I'm not, remember now, remember who I am. I am Tamika Reed. So user, group, and other has permissions of 5 and 5. So I can read and I can execute, but I can't write to this file. So I shouldn't be able to chroot this file. Oh, it let me. That's crazy. I shouldn't be able to. But again, I may be sudo in sudoers too. So let's look at that again. Let's look. Hold on. Let's copy chroot over to chroot. I can read it. That's right. I can read the file. All right. So now if I go to chroot this file and say I put you see that one and read only. I'm just gonna type something in there, and then I'm gonna write quit, and it won't let me because I don't have permissions to that actual file. I don't have permissions to write to that file. So again, I can't write to that file. But as the user and owner of this root, I have permissions to do that. So that's your difference between your sbin and your bin. And in some cases, some commands a regular user can't run. In some of these cases, you can't. Some of these you can't run. Let me see. Let me see if you can find the permissions on these that on the ones that you can't run. Let's see. I don't see any. Hold on, moving fast. Okay, so I get to read and execute, but other. So I will fall in other. So I don't get a chance to read and I don't get a chance to do anything with this one, as you can see. On all this S, I guess all the SPD and audit control, I don't get a chance to run that. Audit, I don't get a chance to run that. Only the user and the group, which is root, get a chance to do that. So that's your differences between your SBin and your bin.